The night began with a scream and ended in silence. The door closed like a final verdict, and the world outside seemed to shrink around an exhausted man and a boy asleep in his arms. Before we dive into this story, leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 10 and tell us what city you're reading from. May this moment bring reflection and emotion to your heart. The cold was more than just weather. It was an internal state, a place from which one never returns whole. The suitcases, thrown on the sidewalk, looked like the wreckage of a shipwreck, scattered haphazardly, vomited from the house that was no longer a home. A torn backpack, a grocery bag with wrinkled clothes, a teddy bear lying on its side, staring up at the sky with that vacant expression toys have when they witness tragedies. He didn't look back. There was no home anymore, just memories flickering like wounds. The second-story window was still lit. He knew she was in there, behind the curtain, watching. Or maybe not. Maybe she'd already gone back to the living room, to her life, to the world that kept spinning while his stood still. The boy slept with that blind trust only children possess. His soft breath against his father's chest, his small, warm body abandoned to sleep, oblivious to the end of a world. He was 4 years old, 4.5 if he were to count precisely. But 4 years was long enough to know when his mother screamed, to hide under the table, to cry softly into his pillow. And it was also enough to quickly forget, to sleep peacefully in his father's arms. As if tomorrow would simply be another day. He was simply called the man, not because he didn't have a name, but because his name no longer mattered. A father, a tired body that weighed more than it should, a soul suspended between what was and what would never be. 36 years old, he looked older, his back stooped from carrying invisible weight, his hands calloused from jobs that no longer existed. His eyes sunken from sleepless nights, 3 months out of work, 92 mornings waking up with his stomach in knots, wondering how to feed his son. How many more times could he bear to open the empty refrigerator? How many more times would he have to invent excuses? Daddy's not hungry. You eat. How many more times would he have to watch the boy divide the last piece of bread in two, offering half with that smile that broke his heart? On the street, the wind whispered the voices of what he had lost. The woman who loved him when there was something to love, when he came home with a paycheck in his pocket and flowers in his hands on Fridays, when he took her dancing at the neighborhood club, when they made love with the window open, letting the breeze in, fearless. That seemed like another life, another man, another world. The job that gave him purpose had disappeared on a Monday morning. The manager called him and 5 others into the office. It was quick, restructuring, necessary cutbacks. Thank you for your service. He had worked there for 8 years, 8 years waking up at 5 in the morning, 8 years taking 2 buses, 8 years working overtime when asked, 8 years believing that effort guaranteed something. The dignity he now tried to disguise under a worn-out coat. The same jacket he wore to work, now it smelled of old sweat and defeat. His unshaven face itched, his hair was too long. But haircuts cost money, and money was a word that had lost all meaning. He had tried. God knew he had tried. He submitted resumes to 47 places. He counted every single one. Grocery stores, gas stations, diners, construction sites, anything. The answer was always the same. We'll call you. Or worse, the silence, that silence that screamed louder than any no. The silence that said, "You're not good enough. You're not sufficient. You don't belong here anymore." The argument had started because of a broken dish, something so small, so stupid. The boy had dropped it by accident, and she screamed at the boy. He defended him, she screamed at him, and it began, all the accumulated anger exploding at once. It wasn't about the dish. It's never about the dish. It was about 3 months of unkept promises, about the bills piled up on the refrigerator, about the shame of borrowing money from her mother, about the wounded pride of a man who could no longer provide, about the weariness of a woman who woke up, worked, came home and still found him on the couch staring at nothing. "I'm trying," he said. His voice came out weak, defeated. "Trying," she laughed, a joyless laugh. "You're just waiting for a miracle, sitting there, waiting for it to fall from the sky." "I submitted resumes everywhere." "So what? You think just submitting a resume is enough? You have to follow up. You have to insist. You have to what?" He stood up, his voice trembling with anger and despair. "You think I don't know? You think I don't want to?" "What I know is that I'm tired." Her voice broke. "Tired of being the only one working. Tired of carrying everything on my shoulders. Tired of seeing you wasting away there, feeling sorry for yourself." "I'm not feeling sorry." "Yes, you are. You're drowning in it and dragging me down with you." The boy started to cry, a soft, frightened cry. He was in the corner of the living room, hugging his teddy bear, watching his parents with those big eyes that pleaded for them to stop. And when the boy cried, something irrevocably broke. She put her hands on her face, took a deep breath. When she removed them, her eyes were dry, but a decision shone in them that he recognized, the decision of someone who had made up her mind long ago and was just waiting for the moment. "I can't take this anymore." Her voice came out calm, cold, worse than the screams. "You have 24 hours to leave." He didn't believe it. "What do you mean?" "You heard me. Grab your things and go." "And the boy?" "Take him. Since you're no good for anything else, at least you're good for that." The words cut him like knives, each one. "Take him." As if her son was an object, an unwanted responsibility. He looked at her, searching for some sign that it was just anger, that she wasn't serious, but there was nothing, just weariness, just emptiness. "Tomorrow, I want both of you gone from here." And she went up the stairs, closed the bedroom door, and he stayed there in the living room, with the boy crying, with the world crumbling, not knowing what to do, not knowing where to go, only knowing that in 24 hours he would have to leave, he would have to take his son, he would have to start over from nothing, from less than nothing. He spent the night packing. The boy fell asleep early, exhausted from crying. He put his son's clothes in a backpack, his own in a bag. They didn't have much. A few shirts, old pants, torn socks. He hadn't even noticed when he had stopped having things, when life had shrunk to fit into a torn backpack. He picked up the teddy bear, the one he had bought when the boy was born. He remembered the day. He had just left the hospital, entered a store, saw the bear. It was too expensive, but he bought it anyway, because his son deserved it, because he was a father, because on that day everything seemed possible. He pressed the bear against his chest, felt the smell of childhood, of milk, of innocence, and put it in the backpack. When the clock struck 10 o'clock the next night, he picked up the bags, picked up his son in his arms. The boy woke up a little groggy. "Daddy, are we going for a walk?" "Yes, son, we're going for a walk." And he left. The door closed behind him with a definitive click, and he stood there on the sidewalk, with his son in his arms and 2 bags at his feet. The clock in the church bell tower marked 10:43. The bell chimed, a deep sound that echoed through the empty neighborhood. Some windows had lights on. He saw the silhouettes of people inside, eating dinner, watching television, living normal lives. And he felt an envy that gnawed at his chest. Envy of those who had somewhere to go, of those who had a place in the world. Some dogs barked in the distance. A window closed when a neighbor noticed what was happening and preferred not to see. It was Mrs. Henderson, the same one who greeted him every day, the same one who said the boy was adorable. But now she closed the curtain, looked away. That's how it works. Other people's tragedies are like car accidents. Everyone glances with that morbid curiosity and moves on, grateful it wasn't them. Nobody wants to get involved. Nobody wants to carry the weight of another. He started walking. He didn't know where, just walked, one foot in front of the other, mechanically, automatically. The boy grew heavier and heavier in his arms, but he wouldn't let him go. He would never let him go. The bags bumped against his legs with each step. The backpack strap dug into his shoulder, but he kept going, because to stop would be to accept, and he wasn't ready to accept yet. He passed the bakery where he bought bread on Sundays. The display window was still lit. There was chocolate cake displayed. The boy loved chocolate cake, always asked for it, and he always bought it when he could. Now he just looked and kept going. He passed the school where his son had started learning his ABCs. His teacher had said he was bright, that he learned fast, that he had a future. The word now sounded like a cruel joke. He passed the bar where he used to have a beer on Saturdays, when he still had a paycheck. When there were still Saturdays, when there was still normalcy. The owner was there, wiping the counter, looked at him, averted his gaze, kept cleaning, and he understood that he had become invisible, that poverty is a modern kind of leprosy. People pull away, pretend not to see, afraid it might be contagious. Every corner held a memory, every street a farewell. There he had taught the boy to ride a bike. There he had fallen and scraped his knee. There they had flown a kite on a Sunday in September. There he had been happy, had been, past, all in the past now. He walked for 40 minutes, maybe an hour. He didn't know anymore. Time had lost its meaning. The streets began to grow emptier, the houses darker. He was reaching the edge of the neighborhood. Beyond that, he didn't know the area anymore. And having to go into the unknown with a son in his arms and no plan was terrifying. It was then that headlights emerged, 2 circles of light cutting through the darkness. An elegant car, a black sedan, imported, the kind that didn't belong in that neighborhood. The engine had a gentle purr, almost a whisper, so different from the noisy old cars that circulated there. The car slowed, stopped a few yards ahead. The engine turned off. The door opened, the precise sound of high heels breaking the night silence. The woman emerged. She got out of the car with that contained elegance of someone who had nothing to prove. Tall, 5 feet 9 inches, maybe more with the heels. Slender, but not fragile. Dressed in black, tailored pants, a silk blouse, a wool coat over it, her hair pulled back in a perfect bun, her makeup subtle, the kind of presence that carried both authority and a hint of sadness at the same time. She closed the car door, stood still for a moment, just observing. The streetlight fell on her, creating a dramatic contrast, half her face illuminated, half in shadow. She was about 50, maybe 55. Her age revealed itself more in her eyes than in her face, eyes that had seen things, that had lost things, that recognized pain when they saw it. Her gaze held no pity. It wasn't that look of someone feeling sorry. It was different. It was a silent recognition, a distant echo of something already experienced, as if she knew exactly what it meant to be there, on that sidewalk, with the world crumbling around him, as if she had been there before, somehow, at some time. "Do you need help?" Her voice was firm but not sharp, polite but not cold. There was something genuine there, a real question waiting for a real answer. He looked at her, then at the ground, at the bags, at his own feet, anywhere but her eyes, because her eyes saw too much. "We're fine." The lie came automatically, a trained reaction. Pride, even starving, was still his last refuge, the only territory where he could still pretend to be a whole man, to be in control, to not need anyone. She didn't insist, didn't make any move, just stood there waiting, as if she knew that the truth always comes after the first denial. The silence stretched between them, thick, heavy, but not uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that weighed more than words because it carried everything that didn't need to be said. The wind blew, rustled the leaves of the trees, brought the smell of rain. It was going to rain. Soon. He felt the first drop, then another. The boy stirred in his arms. murmured something incomprehensible, hugged the bear tighter against his chest. And then he mumbled, still asleep, the slurred voice of someone talking in their sleep. "Dad, is there food?" The question was so small, so childlike, so innocent. 4 words, 12 letters. But they shattered the iron wall the man had erected to avoid begging. He felt his chin tremble, his eyes burned, his throat tightened, his legs weakened. And for the first time in 3 months, his armor cracked. It didn't break completely, but it cracked, and through that crack everything began to leak out. All the pain, all the fear, all the shame. The woman saw the crack, saw the man unraveling. She understood without him saying anything, without him needing to explain, without him having to beg. "Get in the car." It wasn't a request. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a certainty, said with that firmness of someone who doesn't accept no for an answer, of someone who has already made the decision and is simply communicating it. He looked at her, wanted to refuse again. His mouth was already opening to form the words. "We're fine. No need." But then his son asked if there was food, and the world no longer left room for pride. There was nowhere left to cling. There was nowhere left to go. "Thank you." His voice came out hoarse, almost inaudible, laden with shame and gratitude at the same time. That bitter mix of someone accepting help when they don't want to, when they shouldn't, but have to accept because there's no choice. "Don't thank me yet." Her voice was soft, almost a whisper. "Grab the bags." She opened the trunk. He put the bags inside, carefully, as if they were fragile, as if they were valuable, even though they were just old clothes and a teddy bear. She closed the trunk, opened the back door. He got in with the boy in his arms, settled his son on the seat, buckled him in. The boy didn't even wake up, just adjusted himself, sighed, went back to sleep. He was going to sit in the back too. She said to sit in the front. It wasn't an invitation. It was an instruction. He obeyed, opened the front door, sat down. The seat was soft leather. It smelled of a new car, of subtle perfume, of money, a world so distant from his own. She got in on the other side, started the engine. The sound was almost imperceptible, so different from the noise he was used to. "What's your name?" she asked, adjusting the mirrors. "Ryan." He lied. He didn't know why. Maybe because saying his real name would be admitting too much, would be exposing too much. She looked at him, a gaze that saw right through him. "No, it's not. But that's okay. You don't have to tell me." And she put the car in motion. They got into the car like crossing an invisible border, not just between neighborhoods, but between worlds, between lives, between possibilities. The car glided smoothly through the streets. Neither of them spoke. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was necessary. The kind of silence that weighed more than words because it carried everything that didn't need to be said. He looked out the window. The streets passed by. Familiar at first, then less so, then completely strange. They crossed the neighborhood, went up the main thoroughfare. The rain started to fall harder now. The drops hit the glass. The wipers moved back and forth, hypnotic. He felt the weariness setting in, his eyes growing heavy. But he fought against it. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't let his guard down. They entered a part of the city he knew only by sight. He had passed through there a few times. By bus, going to job interviews that never worked out. The streets were wider here, the trees lusher, the houses larger and further apart. It had that particular silence of places where people have enough money to buy distance from others. She turned onto a dead-end street. The car went up a gentle slope, stopped in front of a tall iron gate. She took a remote from the glove compartment, pressed a button. The gate began to open, slowly, revealing a stone path that led up through a garden. The house appeared at the end of that path. It was large, 2 stories, classic style, painted white with dark wood accents, tall windows with shutters, a wide porch in front, A well-maintained garden, old trees, a place that seemed to have forgotten the sound of human voices. "It's here," she said, turning off the engine. The sound of the rain grew louder without the engine, hitting the car roof, the ground, the leaves. She opened the door, got out, opened a large umbrella, came around to his side. He got out with his son in his arms. She held the umbrella over both of them. The bags stayed in the trunk. She said she'd get them later. They went up the porch steps. The front door was solid wood, carved, old. She opened it with a key. They went inside. The house was even bigger inside. The ceilings must have been 14 feet high. Wooden floors that creaked softly. Period furniture, heavy, dark. Old paintings on the walls, black and white photos in silver frames, everything very clean, everything very tidy. But there was something, a feeling of emptiness, of absence, as if the house was waiting for something that never arrived. "You can stay in the back bedroom. It has a private bathroom. I'll prepare something for you to eat." She pointed down the hallway to the right. He nodded, couldn't speak. His throat was tight, emotion mixed with exhaustion. He followed down the hallway. The walls had old wallpaper, subtle flowers, more photos. A man and her, younger, smiling in different places. The beach, the mountains, restaurants, an entire life frozen in frames. The bedroom was at the end of the hallway. He opened the door. It was simple. A queen-sized bed with a white comforter, a wooden wardrobe, a dresser, a chair next to the window, a window that overlooked the backyard, light curtains that moved with the breeze. The bathroom was to the left. He glimpsed it. Clean, white towels folded, new soap, everything ready, as if it had been waiting for them. He laid the boy on the bed, carefully, so as not to wake him, took off his son's shoes, covered him with the comforter. The boy turned on his side, hugged the bear, sighed, continued sleeping, his face peaceful, his small hands closed, his breathing steady, as if nothing had happened, as if the world hadn't ended a few hours ago, and maybe for him it hadn't. Children have that gift, to sleep despite everything, to wake up and start over, to not yet carry the weight of the world. He stayed there, watching his son sleep, ran a hand through the boy's hair. Dark hair, slightly wavy, like his mother's, long eyelashes, rosy cheeks. So perfect, so innocent. And he thought, how will I protect you? How will I give you what you deserve? How will I be enough? He left the room, closed the door slowly, went back down the hallway, reached the living room. The woman was already there. She had taken off her coat, rolled up the sleeves of her blouse. She was setting plates on the dining room table, a large table, the kind that seated 10 people, but there were only 2 plates. "Sit down, dinner will be ready soon." He sat. The chair was comfortable, upholstered. He sank into it, felt his entire body ache. He hadn't realized until then how tense he was. His shoulders, his back, his legs, everything hurt. She returned from the kitchen with a serving dish. Soup, the smell of vegetables, of garlic, of cilantro. She placed it on the table, went back, brought bread, butter, a glass of water, sat down on the other side, just observing. "Eat." Her voice was firm, but gentle. He picked up the spoon, dipped it into the soup, brought it to his mouth. It was hot, very hot, burned his tongue. But he didn't care. It was the first hot thing he had eaten in days, maybe weeks. He ate slowly at first, trying to maintain composure, but his body pleaded for more. Hunger was greater than pride. He ate faster, finished the plate. She pushed the serving dish towards him. "Help yourself to more." He served himself, ate again, a piece of bread, another, more soup. When he finished, she collected the plates. He wanted to help, stood up, but she gestured for him to remain seated. She took everything to the kitchen, returned a few minutes later with clean towels, soft, smelling of fabric softener. "I'll leave these here. If you need anything, My room is the first one down the hallway to the left. Call me. Don't be ashamed." She was about to leave. "Go upstairs. Go to her room." He called out, an impulse, a need. "Why?" His voice came out hoarse, laden with emotion. "Why are you doing this?" She stopped on the first step, stood with her back to him for an instant, her hand on the railing, her posture erect. When she turned, her eyes held something he couldn't name. It wasn't pity, it wasn't kindness in the usual sense. It was something deeper, more human, because someone once did it for me, and it saved me. And she said nothing more. Went up the stairs, slowly, the sound of her heels on the wood, the bedroom door opening, closing, and the house returned to silence. He stayed there, in the living room, alone with his thoughts, looking at his own hands, at the high ceiling, at the paintings on the walls, at the door of the room where his son slept, trying to understand what had happened. How, in a single day, in a single instant, an entire life can change. How one can be in hell one moment and somewhere akin to heaven the next. How kindness can emerge from where it's least expected. How shame and gratitude can coexist in the same heart without destroying each other. He got up, went to the bathroom, looked in the mirror. He didn't recognize the man he saw. Sunken eyes, unshaven face, disheveled hair, pale skin. He looked 10 years older. He looked defeated, and perhaps he was. But he was still standing, he was still fighting, he still had his son. He turned on the shower. The water came out hot. Steam filled the bathroom. He took off his clothes, stepped in. The hot water fell like absolution on his tired body, washed his hair, his face, his body, all the grime of the past few days, all the shame, all the defeat, draining away down the drain. He stayed there under the water for how long he didn't know, until the water started to cool, until his fingers became wrinkled. He got out, dried himself with the soft towel, put on clean clothes he had taken from his backpack, a white t-shirt, sweatpants. He went to the bedroom, lay down next to his son, on his side, looking at the small face, the soft breathing, the chest rising and falling, so perfect, so fragile, and for the first time in months, he slept. Slept without dreaming, without nightmares, without waking up in the middle of the night, with his heart racing. He slept like the dead, profoundly. And when he woke up, light was coming through the window. The first few days were strange. Not because they were bad, quite the opposite, because they were too good. He woke up early, a habit, even without a place to go, even without anything to do. His body woke at 6, always. The house was already awake. There was the smell of coffee, of bread. He got up, washed his face, went to the kitchen. She was there, sitting at the table, alone, reading the newspaper, a steaming cup of coffee beside her. She wore reading glasses, seemed focused. He stood at the door, not knowing if he should enter, if he should interrupt. She looked up, saw him, took off her glasses. "Good morning." "Good morning," he replied. "There's fresh coffee and bread. Help yourself." He went in, went to the counter, poured coffee into a cup, grabbed a piece of bread, sat on the other side of the table. Far enough not to intrude, close enough to be polite. He drank his coffee in silence. She returned to her newspaper. Neither of them forced conversation. There was no need. It was a tacit agreement, mutual respect, space to breathe, to exist without explanations. The boy woke up half an hour later, entered the kitchen with his eyes still puffy with sleep, his hair spiked up, his pajama shirt askew. Dad, hungry. She had already prepared something, as if she knew he would wake up at that time, as if she had an instinct. Chocolate milk in a mug, toast with jelly, sliced fruit on a plate, papaya, banana, apple, all arranged. The boy sat, looked at the food, looked at her. "Thank you." His small voice, polite. She smiled, a faint, almost imperceptible half-smile on her lips, as if she were rediscovering a forgotten sound, the sound of a child saying thank you, of a child chewing, of a child existing. He ate with the clean appetite of children who carry no guilt, who don't know the world is hard, who believe tomorrow will be better. She watched him from afar, over the top of her newspaper, her eyes fixed, attentive, as if she were memorizing every gesture, every sound, every moment. After breakfast, the father and son went to the bedroom. They stayed there, not quite knowing what to do, how to behave, if they should go out, if they should stay. She knocked on the door an hour later, entered. She brought clean clothes for the boy, washed, ironed, smelling of soap and sunshine. I washed them. They were in the backpack. I hope you don't mind. He was speechless. No, Thank you. She left the clothes on the bed, was about to leave. He called out, Excuse me, I don't even know your name. She stopped, turned. Eleanor. My name is Eleanor. Nice to meet you, Eleanor. I know, she interrupted softly, without malice. You told me yesterday, Ryan. She smiled faintly, even knowing it wasn't true, and left. He wanted to keep busy. He couldn't stand still. It felt wrong to receive without giving anything in return. It felt like being indebted, like being a burden. He started small. He observed the house, looked for what needed repair, and there always is. Houses are living organisms. They always break. They always need care. The kitchen faucet was dripping, a constant drip. She hadn't even mentioned it. Maybe she didn't even notice anymore, but he heard it during the night, and he couldn't ignore it. He asked if she had tools. She showed him the garage, an old toolbox. My husband's, she said. He didn't ask any more questions. He fixed the faucet, changed the washer, tightened it, tested it. It stopped dripping. She passed through the kitchen, saw it, looked at him with surprise. You didn't have to. I know, but I needed to. She understood, nodded, went on. In the following days he continued. He replaced 3 burned-out light bulbs. In the hallway, in the downstairs bathroom, on the porch. He adjusted the living room cabinet door that wouldn't close properly. The latch was loose. He tightened the screws, adjusted the strike plate. Now it closed perfectly. He sanded and painted the garden bench that was peeling. The paint was in the garage, old, but still usable. He sanded, applied 2 coats. It looked new. Small repairs, small offerings. His way of saying thank you without having to say it, of paying without money, of reciprocating with what he had. His hands, his effort, his desire to be useful. She watched from afar, from her bedroom window, from the porch. She never asked, never complained, but she left things in plain sight, a can of paint in the garage, screws in a drawer, a new light bulb on the counter, like clues, like silent invitations, and he accepted, he worked, he sweated, felt his muscles ache, and it felt good. It was the first time in months that he felt useful, that he felt he was worth something, that he wasn't just a burden. The boy explored. The garden was an entire universe for him. There was an old tree with low branches, perfect for climbing. A stone path that led to the back. Flower beds with blooms he didn't know the names of. Roses, jasmines, lilies. He ran along the paths, laughed to himself, picked up twigs and pretended they were swords, fought invisible enemies, shouted imaginary victories, and the house, which had forgotten the sound of human voices, began to remember, began to wake up, to breathe again. Eleanor stood at the living room window, watching, always from afar, always in silence. But something in her face changed when the boy laughed. A softness, a light, a crack in the armor she had built over the years, as if that laughter was melting something inside her that had frozen long ago. At night they ate dinner together, the 3 of them, at the large table. Eleanor cooked, rice, beans, meat, salad, simple, homemade, delicious food. He insisted on washing the dishes. It was the least he could do. She let him. The boy told invented stories. About a dragon that lived under the bed, about a pirate who hid treasures in the garden, about a princess who saved the prince. Eleanor pretended to believe him, asked questions. "And where did the pirate take the treasure?" The boy explained, with seriousness, with conviction. And she smiled. Truly. The father watched, saw his son happy, saw Eleanor coming back to life, and felt something he couldn't name. It wasn't love, not yet. It was gratitude. It was relief. It was the feeling of belonging, even if temporarily, of having a place, of not being alone. It was a strange routine, artificial at first, like three people pretending to be a family, forcing normalcy where there was none. But gradually, the artificiality dissolved. The silences became more comfortable. The conversations more natural. The gestures less thought out, less calculated, more genuine. One night after the boy had fallen asleep, they stayed on the porch. She was smoking, a long menthol cigarette. He just looked at the dark garden, the stars, the crescent moon, the sound of crickets. "You don't ask anything," she said, exhaling smoke slowly. "It's not my business," he replied. She took another puff. "But you want to know?" "Yes, but I don't need to." She was silent for a while, just smoking, thinking, deciding. Then she began to speak, her voice low, calm. There was a husband, Frank, a good man, a doctor, a cardiologist. He worked too much. Always worked too much, left early, came back late. Weekends he was on call. But he was a good man, loving, when he was present. One day he didn't come back. He was in his office, seeing a patient, felt a sharp pain in his chest, aneurysm, 42 years old. It was quick, so quick she didn't even have time to say goodbye, to say she loved him, to say thank you. He was there and suddenly he wasn't anymore. The house became too big. The silence became too big. She woke up expecting to hear him in the shower, expecting the smell of coffee he made, expecting his footsteps on the stairs. But there was nothing, only silence, only absence. She tried to sell it, put up an advertisement. People came to see it, but she couldn't. It was the last thing that still connected them. Every room held a memory, every corner a story. So she stayed, alone, for years. "How many years?" he asked. 12. She put out her cigarette in the ashtray. 12 years alone in this house. He didn't know what to say. "I'm sorry," seemed too little, far too little, so he said nothing. Just stayed, and sometimes just staying is enough. "And you?" she asked. "Why were you on the street?" he told her. The layoff. The humiliation of looking for a job and not finding one. The bills that didn't add up. The wife who grew tired, who gave up. The argument about the broken dish that wasn't about the dish. The order to leave. The door closing. Everything. She listened without interrupting, without judging. When he finished, she lit another cigarette, looked at him through the smoke. "Life has a cruel way of bringing us to our knees," he agreed. "But sometimes it's on our knees that we truly learn to get back up." True. They stayed there, on the porch, under the stars. The night grew cooler. Two strangers who were no longer strangers. Two solitudes that began to understand that perhaps they didn't have to be alone. That perhaps together, even without touching, they weighed less. Weeks turned into a month, then almost 2. Time passed differently there, more slowly, more gently. He had found some sporadic jobs. A neighbor needed his house painted, another his fence fixed. An acquaintance of Eleanor's needed help with a move. Nothing fixed, nothing stable. But it was money, it was dignity. He saved every penny in an old tin can Eleanor had given him. He wanted to save up to rent his own place. He couldn't stay there forever. It wasn't right, it wasn't fair. But every time he mentioned leaving, Eleanor changed the subject. Not yet. There's no rush. Stay a little longer. And he stayed, not because he was weak, not because he was complacent, but because, for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel like a burden. He felt he belonged, that he had a role, that he made a difference. The boy had created his own routine. Every morning, he woke up and went straight to the kitchen to find Eleanor. She was always there, always had something prepared, and he started calling her Mrs. Eleanor. It wasn't her name. It was just Eleanor. But he insisted. Mrs. Eleanor. As if the Mrs. gave her more importance, more respect. She didn't correct him, accepted it. As if accepting that name was accepting a role, a place in that makeshift family. Mrs. Eleanor, can I play outside? You can, but put on your jacket. It's cold. Mrs. Eleanor, do you like to draw? Not much, but do you? I do. Look what I made. And he showed a drawing, always 3 figures, a tall man, a woman, a boy, and a dog, even without having a dog, because every boy draws a dog. Eleanor put the drawing on the refrigerator, with a magnet, like mothers do. One day the boy asked, Mrs. Eleanor, are you my dad's friend? The question came suddenly, out of nowhere, like children do. Eleanor stopped what she was doing. She was cutting vegetables, placed the knife on the cutting board, looked at the boy. Yes, I'm your dad's friend, and yours too. May I be? The boy smiled. That clean smile of someone who hasn't yet learned to lie, you can. And ran off, back to the garden, as if that answer explained everything, as if friendship was the answer to all unasked questions. Eleanor stayed there, still, her hand on the knife. Her eyes welled up, and the father, who had heard everything from the hallway, felt something move inside his chest. Something that hurt. But it was a good pain, the pain of belonging, of being seen, of being accepted. One Thursday afternoon, while he was painting the back fence, the house phone rang. It was rare. Almost no one called. Eleanor answered in the living room. He heard the tone of her voice change, become colder, more distant, more formal. She hung up a few minutes later, stood still, looking at the phone as if it had just betrayed her. He dropped the paintbrush, entered, his hands stained with paint. What was it? She took a deep breath, looked at him. It was a lawyer, looking for you. The world stopped. The air grew heavy. How did they find me here? He felt the ground move beneath his feet. They must have followed a trail. Called your old neighbors. Someone must have seen you getting into my car. Someone must have taken down the license plate. They investigated. His heart raced. His hands began to tremble. What did she want? Eleanor looked at him, and for the first time since they met, there was fear in her eyes, real fear. The boy's mother. She wants custody back. The world collapsed, again. He felt his legs weaken, sat in the chair before he fell, put his hands on his face, stained with paint. It didn't matter, nothing mattered. No, 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 no. His voice came out muffled by his hands. She kicked me out. She told me to take him. She didn't care. I know. Eleanor's voice was soft, controlled. But the law doesn't work that way. She can claim you're not in a position to care for him, that you're living on someone else's generosity, that you don't have a steady job, that you don't have your own residence, and she'll probably win. She has a job, she has a house, she has stability on paper. He looked at her, his eyes red. So that's it? I fight and I fight and I fight, and in the end I lose anyway? His voice broken, desperate. Eleanor approached, knelt in front of him, held his shoulders firmly, strongly. No, look at me. He looked. You won't lose, not if I can help it. Do you hear me? I won't let this happen. How? His voice came out weak, defeated. How will you stop it? I don't know yet, but we'll figure it out. Together. And it was in that instant, that simple moment, almost mundane, that something irreversible happened. He believed. He believed he wasn't alone, that there was someone by his side, someone who would stay, someone who would fight. And for the second time since they met, his armor broke, and he cried, there, on his knees, with Eleanor holding his shoulders, and she let him. She didn't try to make him stop, didn't say it was okay because it wasn't. But she said they would fight. And that, for now, was enough. The following days were a silent storm. His ex-wife's lawyer sent official notifications, scheduled a hearing, demanded proof of income, of residence, of stability, of capability, everything he didn't have, everything the system demands to prove you are worthy of loving your own child, as if love were measured in pay stubs, in rental agreements, in utility bills paid on time. He didn't sleep. He spent nights on the porch, smoking cigarettes Eleanor left nearby, even without asking. She knew, thinking of all the ways he could lose, to fail again, to not be enough again. His mind wouldn't stop. It spun, creating scenarios, all bad, all ending with the boy being taken away. Eleanor sat beside him, said nothing, just stayed, smoked too. And sometimes, just staying is the most powerful thing one can do. Just being present, without trying to fix, without trying to explain, just existing together. One of those nights, she spoke. I'm going to hire a lawyer, a good one, an expensive one. He'll represent you. He looked at her. I can't afford it. I know, I'm not asking you to pay. But why? His voice came out hoarse. Oh, why are you doing this? Why are you doing all of this? She looked at the dark garden, at the stars, anywhere but his eyes. Because no one should lose a child for being poor. Her voice came out firm. Because what you have with that boy is real. Anyone can see it. Because I'm tired of seeing injustice and staying silent. Because I can do something, so I will. And you will let me. It wasn't a request. It was an order. He couldn't refuse, couldn't say no. So he just said, thank you. And she, don't thank me yet, let's win first. The lawyer's name was Mr. Mark Stevens. He was about 60, grey hair, thin-rimmed glasses, impeccable suit, understated tie, calm, measured voice, the kind that conveyed confidence. He came to the house, Eleanor insisted. She didn't want him to feel intimidated going to a large office. Mr. Stevens sat in the living room, opened a folder, took out a notepad, a pen, and listened. He told him everything, from the beginning, the layoff, the attempts, the argument, the street, the encounter, everything. Mr. Stevens listened, took notes, asked precise questions. And the mother? Does she work? Yes. What does she do? She's a nurse. Does she own her home? She does. Rented, but it's hers. How long have you been separated? 3 months. Mr. Stevens closed his notepad, took off his glasses, rubbed his eyes. I'll be honest. The mother has an advantage. She has a steady job, a home, proven income, stability on paper. But that's not everything. The judge also considers other factors. The child's emotional well-being, the history, who has been present, and that works in your favor. But we need to show that there is structure here, that it's not temporary, that it's a real home. He looked at Eleanor. Ma'am, do you live here? Yes. How long? 12 years. Do you work? Yes, I'm an accountant. I work from home. Would you be willing to testify? She didn't hesitate for a second. Yes. I'll list you as a witness. That helps a lot. It shows there's support, that there's a network, that he's not alone. And then he looked at him. You need to show that you are putting down roots, that this isn't transitory, that it's permanent. How? Mr. Stevens thought. Is there space here? In the back? There's an old structure, a guest house. Build something, make it yours. Show that you are investing, that you are committed, that you are staying. Eleanor looked at him. That was already in her mind. It was already planned. She already knew. It makes sense. Everything's there. It just needs renovation. I can help. No, he interrupted. This I'll do. I need to do it. For myself. For him. She understood. Nodded. Mr. Stevens stood up. We have a hearing in 2 weeks. Gather everything you can. Photos, testimonials, proof of work. Anything that shows you are trying, that you haven't given up. And start working on that house. Show that you are building a future, literally and figuratively. And left. He stayed there, in the empty living room, with Eleanor, processing. Is it possible? He asked. Mr. Stevens is the best in the city. If anyone can, it's him. But he can't work miracles. We need to give him ammunition. You need to show you deserve it. I don't know if I deserve it. Stop. Look at me. She held his face. You deserve it. That boy loves you. He sleeps peacefully because you exist. That's all that matters. He started the next day. Woke up before the sun. Went to the back. The structure was there. A small house. It had been for caretakers long ago, when Eleanor and her husband had caretakers. But no one had lived there for years. The roof leaked, the walls were cracked, the windows broken. But the structure was good, solid. It could be saved. He cleaned first, removed debris, brooms, branches, leaves, rust, accumulated trash. It took hours. He sweated. His back ached, but he continued. Then he fixed the roof, replaced tiles, sealed with silicone, tested it with water. It didn't leak anymore. Then he went to the walls, patched cracks, sanded, painted, white, simple, clean. Eleanor helped, not with the heavy work, but by buying materials, bringing food, water, coffee, encouraging him. You're doing great. It's looking beautiful. And the boy helped too, in his own way. Held nails, passed tools, painted small sections, laughed when his father mismeasured. And that laughter, was fuel. It was motivation. It was everything. It took 2 weeks, working every day. From 6 in the morning until dark, the house took shape. It was small, 1 bedroom, a tiny kitchen, a bathroom. But it was solid, it was real, it was theirs. When he finished, he stood at the door, looking, not believing that his own hands had built that he, who was useless according to his ex-wife, had built a house, brick by brick, wall by wall. Eleanor approached, stood beside him, without touching, just present. It's beautiful. Her voice soft, almost a whisper. Thank you. For everything. For believing. She shook her head. Don't thank me yet. Let's win this fight first. Then you can thank me. The hearing was scheduled for a Monday. He didn't sleep the night before. Stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, imagining scenarios, preparing words, rehearsing answers. Eleanor knocked on his door at 5 in the morning, brought coffee, cookies. Sit, eat, you need strength. He tried, but his stomach was tight. He managed 2 sips of coffee, 1 cookie. He put on the best clothes he had, a white dress shirt. Eleanor had washed it, ironed it. It was impeccable. Black pants, shoes Eleanor had subtly bought, left them in a bag by his bedroom door. Without saying anything, he put them on. They fit perfectly. He looked at himself in the mirror. He looked like a different person. He looked like someone who had a chance. Eleanor went with him. She wore a navy blue dress, elegant, understated, her hair down, subtle earrings. She drove. He couldn't. His hands were shaking too much. Mr. Stevens met them at the courthouse door. Ready? No, but we're going. Good. Honesty is important. They went in. The room was cold. The air conditioning was too strong. Uncomfortable chairs, white walls, neutral, impersonal. His ex-wife was there, sitting on the other side, with her lawyer. She wore a modest rose-colored dress, her hair in a ponytail, light makeup, the mask of the concerned mother. She didn't look at him, not once. Her lawyer was young, early 30s, aggressive, started with a strong attack, presented photos of him on the street, with the bags, with the boy in his arms, argued that he was homeless, that he had no fixed employment, that he was living on someone else's generosity, that the boy needed stability, that the mother regretted her actions, that she had acted on impulse, that now she was ready, that she had the means, that she had structure. Mr. Stevens countered, presented photos of the boy, smiling in the garden, playing. Healthy, happy, the testimonials from neighbors that Eleanor had obtained, all saying the same thing: the boy is fine, the father is present, there is love there. He presented proof of the sporadic jobs. It wasn't much, but it was something. It was effort. It was an attempt. And he called Eleanor. She stood up, went to the front, placed her hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth. And she did. She spoke about how they arrived, about how he never stopped fighting, about how the boy was healthy, happy, safe, about how he worked every day, about how he had built a house with his own hands, about how love isn't a big house or a high salary. It's being present, it's not giving up, it's fighting, even when everything seems lost. His ex-wife's lawyer tried to discredit her. "Ma'am, you have a personal interest in this situation." "That's true, I do." "What exactly?" "That a child remain with someone who never abandoned him. That he remain in a place where he is loved, where he is seen, where he matters." Silence in the room, a thick, heavy silence. The judge took notes, the pen scratching on paper, the sound echoing. Then they called him, the man, the father. He stood up, his legs trembling, went to the front, past his ex-wife. She looked down. He swore, sat. The judge looked at him. An older man, about 65. White hair, eyes tired from seeing tragedies. "Why do you believe you should have custody of your son?" He took a deep breath, opened his mouth, closed it. The words seemed insufficient. How to summarize everything in one answer? How to explain that he woke up in the middle of the night just to watch his son breathe? How to say that everything he was, everything he did, everything he wanted to be, began and ended with that boy? How to make him understand that it wasn't about deserving, but about love? "Because he's my son." His voice came out hoarse, but firm. "Because I never gave up. Because I fell. I fell hard, but I always got back up. Because I don't have much, I don't have money, I don't have my own house, but what I do have, I give. I give everything. Because he sleeps peacefully, because he laughs, because he looks for me when he's scared, because he knows I'm there, and because I'd rather die than leave him again. He is my life. He is the reason. He is everything." The judge wrote, "For a long time. And you, Mom?" He looked at his ex-wife. "Why do you want custody now?" She cleared her throat, looked at her hands. "Because I'm his mother. Because I made a mistake. I was tired. I was overwhelmed. But I regret it. And I deserve a second chance. Everyone does. I want to be a mother again. I want to take care of him. Give him what he deserves." The judge looked at her intently. "Why doesn't the father deserve that same second chance?" She didn't answer, remained silent. Her lawyer tried to argue, but the judge raised his hand. "Silence. I've heard enough. I will deliberate. I will give my decision in 1 week. Everyone may be excused." He banged the gavel, stood up, left, and it was over. They got up, left. His ex-wife left quickly, without looking, her lawyer behind her. He stood there, still, trembling. Eleanor held his hand. "You were incredible," her voice firm. "You spoke from the heart." Mr. Stevens agreed. "It was honest, true. Now we wait." He couldn't reply, just squeezed Eleanor's hand back and left. The following week was the longest of his life. Every minute was torture, every hour an eternity. He tried to maintain a routine, work, play with his son, eat, sleep, but his mind wouldn't stop. What if he lost? What if they took the boy? What if everything he had built crumbled? What if he never saw his son again? The thought was unbearable, physical. It hurt in his chest, in his stomach, in his soul. Eleanor was always nearby. She didn't say it would be okay, because she didn't know. She didn't promise victory, because she couldn't. But she said that no matter what happened, he wouldn't be alone, that they would deal with it together, that she would be there, and that in some strange way was enough. It was enough to keep breathing, to keep existing, to not completely fall apart. The phone rang on a Friday, 3 p.m. He was in the garden with the boy, building a cardboard house. Eleanor answered, called out, "It's Mr. Stevens." He dropped everything, ran, picked up the phone, his hands sweating. "Hello." Mr. Stevens's voice was neutral, professional, as always. "The decision is out." The world stopped. His heart stopped. "And?" he had to ask, even afraid of the answer. A pause, long, interminable. "You won!" His legs failed. He held onto the counter, repeated it. "To be sure, to believe. I won. You won. Full custody." The judge determined that the boy is well where he is, that there is emotional stability, that there is support, that the mother had her chance and voluntarily relinquished it, that the child's best interest is to remain with his father. She has a right to supervised visitation, but custody is yours. He hung up, stood there, still, looking at the wall. He didn't cry, didn't shout, didn't jump. He just breathed, as if he was breathing for the first time in months, as if the world had started spinning again. Eleanor came in, saw his face, ran. What happened? He looked at her, smiled, a true smile, enormous. "I won, I won. He gets to stay with me." She knelt, hugged him, tightly, and there, for both of them, the armor finally shattered completely. He cried, she cried, not from sadness but from relief, from victory, from the recognition that sometimes, against all odds, justice happens, right prevails, love wins. The boy ran in, saw them both on the floor, hugging, crying. He looked worried, looked confused. "Dad? Is Mrs. Eleanor hurt?" He opened his arms. "Come here, son. Come here." The boy ran, jumped into his lap. The three of them stayed there on the kitchen floor, hugging, and for the first time it felt like a family, not perfect, not traditional, but real, true, complete. Life returned to its rhythm, but it was a different rhythm, lighter, more peaceful, without the looming threat, without the constant fear. He and the boy officially moved into the guest house. It was small, but it was theirs. Every night he tucked the boy in, told a story, turned off the light, and stayed there, just watching, listening to his breathing, grateful, immensely grateful. Eleanor returned to her routine, but the house was no longer silent. In the morning, the boy ran through the garden, shouted, laughed. In the afternoon, the man worked, repaired, built. At night, they ate dinner together, the three of them, conversed, talked about their day, planned for tomorrow, and that house which had forgotten the sound of voices was now music. It was life. It was home. They didn't fall in love. There was no cinematic moment, no kiss in the rain, no dramatic declaration. What grew between them was different, deeper, more human, less spectacular, more real. It was a silent pact of care, the complicity of those who know the price of starting over, the intimacy of those who share silences, who understand each other without words, who are there not out of passion, but out of choice. She had lost her husband to death. He had lost his dignity to unemployment. And together, without realizing it, without forcing it, they had found something new. Not a substitute, not a second version, but something of their own, unique, valid. One night, months later, they were on the porch. As always, she was smoking. He looked at the garden. The boy slept. The moon was full, illuminating everything with that silver light. "Are you going to stay?" she asked, not looking at him, looking at the moon. "If you let me," he replied. "I'll let you. I want you to stay." "Then I'll stay." She put out her cigarette, stood up, was about to go in. He called out, "Eleanor." She turned. "Thank you for not driving past that night, for stopping, for seeing, for staying." She smiled, a small, true smile. "Thank you for accepting, for allowing it, for trusting." And she went inside. He stayed there, alone, but no longer lonely. Never again lonely. He thought of everything, of how life has strange ways of mending what breaks, of how sometimes we lose everything to find what truly matters, of how kindness exists, discreet, silent, of how love isn't always romantic. Sometimes it's just someone who stays, someone who doesn't leave when things get tough, someone who sees you at rock bottom and extends a hand, not with pity, but with humanity. Time passed. Seasons changed. The boy grew up, started real school, made friends, brought home homework, complained, normal, healthy, brought drawings, always three figures, always. The father, Mrs. Eleanor, him. And when asked at school who the woman was, he would say, "She's my dad's friend. We live together." And the children accepted it, because children accept, without judging, without complicating. The man got a steady job at a construction company, started as a helper, then a bricklayer, then a construction foreman. He earned well, wasn't rich, but it was stable. He had a steady job, benefits, paid vacation, an annual bonus, dignity. He paid Eleanor rent, a symbolic amount. She refused, but he insisted. "I need to, it's important for me." She understood, accepted. Eleanor started working more, took on more clients. She felt alive again, useful, with purpose. The house continued to be for the three of them, each in their own space, but together, not out of obligation, but out of choice, because family isn't just blood. It's presence, it's choice, it's who stays. Years passed. The boy became a teenager, grew up. His voice changed, started questioning, normal, healthy. He asked about his mother. His father didn't lie, told him everything, the whole truth. The boy was angry, sad, confused, but then he understood. He understood that family isn't who gives birth to you. It's who raises you, who stays, who chooses to stay every day. When the boy turned 18, he wanted to find his mother. His father was scared, but he didn't stop him. Eleanor supported him. "You need to do this. You need answers. You need to find closure." And the boy went, alone. He found her, talked, came back different, more mature, more at peace. She apologized, cried, said she wasn't ready, that she did what she could at the time, that she regrets it, and I accepted it. I didn't forget, but I accepted it. She asked to see us more. I said maybe, that I'd think about it. But my family is you and Mrs. Eleanor. My place is there. His father hugged his son, cried, with pride, with gratitude, with love. Eleanor aged gracefully, white hair, soft wrinkles, still the same posture, the same firmness, but lighter, more alive. The house was always full. The boy brought his girlfriend, then his wife, then his children, and Eleanor was a grandmother, without being, but being. The grandchildren called her Grandma Eleanor. She melted. She had grandchildren without having had children. She had family without blood, and it was enough. It was everything. When Eleanor fell ill, they took care of her, father and son, and grandchildren. They took turns, they stayed. They didn't leave her alone, she protested. You have lives, you have work, you don't have to. But they stayed, because it was the right thing to do, because it was love, because it was returning the favor. She died on a spring morning, in her sleep, without pain, at peace. The father found her, cried. The son ran back, cried. The grandchildren cried, and they held the funeral, small, intimate, just family, close friends. They buried her next to her husband, where she always wanted. On the headstone the son wrote, "Here lies Eleanor, who saved two strangers, and in saving them, saved herself." The man continued living there. He couldn't leave. Every corner held a memory, every room a story. His son offered, "Come live with me. You don't have to be alone." But I'm not alone. She's here, in every corner, in every wall. And I promised I would stay, so I stay. And he stayed, until the end. He took care of the house, of the garden, of the memories. And when his time came, it was there, on the porch, looking at the garden, where everything had begun, where everything made sense. His son buried him next to Eleanor, because they were family. On the headstone, "Here lies a man who fell, but never stopped getting back up." And the story continued. Through the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren, the house remained in the family. The garden continued to bloom, and the memory of the three remained, alive, real. Because in the end, it's not about grand accomplishments. It's about small gestures, about being present, about not giving up, about accepting help, about offering help, about building day after day a life worth living. If this story touched your heart, like, comment, and subscribe. Stories like this deserve to be remembered.